Sergeant First Class Mark Wood.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Palladium. My name is Jeff McDermott. I'm proud to serve as the president and the CEO right here at the Center for the Performing Arts and for the Great American Songbook Foundation. You know, as a proud Carmel resident myself for over the last 30 years, I've witnessed and really have greatly appreciated the remarkable progress that our city has made on so many fronts. As I know you have, the citizens of Carmel can be very, very proud of this city. And now we're about ready to choose a new mayor who's going to provide a vision for our future. And that makes this election perhaps the most important one any of us can remember. Here at the Center, we really consider ourselves a community asset and an institution that is important to play a role in our civic life. Just tomorrow, for instance, we will be hosting a naturalization ceremony, the fourth one we've hosted here, where over 100 individuals from dozens of countries around the world will walk across this stage, take the oath of citizenship, and become brand new United States citizens. Those are the types of things we do besides performances and educational programs, and tonight is no different. You know, when we learned from our friends at the Kern and Carmel that they were planning to have a mayoral debate, we immediately asked, how can we help? And we're very proud that they invited us to allow this venue to be the host venue for this. I cannot say enough about Steve Greenberg, Anne-Marie Shambaugh, and the rest of our friends at the Kern and Carmel. They have been a dream to work with on this debate, and I thank them for being such a wonderful community partner. Please join me in thanking Kern and Carmel. As I look around the room, we've got a great audience tonight. It is wonderful to see such a high level of interest in our local government. I spoke at a group earlier this evening, and I said this is the largest crowd we have ever had for 3 headliners who we're not paying a dime to. And so we are very appreciative that you're here. The price of the tickets were commensurate with that, by the way. But give yourselves a hand for being here tonight. We really appreciate you all coming out. And now, if you would join me in welcoming our moderator this evening, the managing editor of the Current and Carmel, who will explain the rules for tonight's debate. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Anne-Marie Shambaugh.
Thank you for the introduction, Jeff. As you heard, my name is Anne-Marie Shambaugh, and I'm the managing editor of Current and Carmel and the moderator for tonight's debate. In a moment, the candidates will give their opening statements. The order in which they will speak throughout the event was determined by a blind draw this afternoon. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for opening and closing statements and 2 minutes to answer each question. They will be given an opportunity for a 1-minute rebuttal after all candidates have answered a question. Many of the questions I will be asking tonight were submitted by Carmel residents or inspired by their feedback. The candidates have not seen the list of questions. For those attending the debate in person, we have a couple of rules to review before we get started. Please do not applaud, cheer, or otherwise display partisan behavior during the event. And audience members are not permitted to take photos or videos. Those who violate these requests will be asked to leave. Now, let's meet the candidates, and you are allowed to applaud for this part. First, I'd like to welcome Carmel City Councilor Sue Finkum. Please welcome Mr. Fred Glynn. And finally, let's welcome City Councilor Kevin Woody Ryder. Okay, now let's get started. We're going to start with opening statements, and per the blind draw we did earlier, Mr. Glynn, you're going to go first.
Thank you to the Current, the Center for the Performing Arts, my opponents, and the audience for being present this evening. I would also like to recognize my family sitting up front. My wife Beth has been my biggest mentor. She's also a successful executive. My daughter Jada just graduated from Carmel High School, has been active in the theater community almost her entire life. And she just played the role of Wednesday Addams in the Addams Family musical. And my wife and I are always very proud of her. I moved to Carmel 20 years ago and have been proud to call this community my home. In that time, I have built and sold 2 businesses and served 8 years on the Hamilton County Council. In my time on the County Council, I led on a business stabilization plan, a AAA bond rating, a performance audit to make sure we were using your tax dollars efficiently, and the purchase of land for the county's first domestic violence shelter. We are at a crossroads in our county. The last time we had a change in leadership, Bill Clinton was in his first term as president. Gas was $1.20 a gallon. The average price of a home was $68,500 compared to $428,000 today. In that time, we have made a lot of positive changes when it comes to infrastructure, amenities, businesses on the Meridian Corridor, and lots of productive citizens and families that call our community home. We have laid a good foundation, but just like the White House, fuel, and home prices, it is time for a change. While we will keep growing, having new projects take shape, and bringing in new businesses, the time for excessive debt and spending to fuel controlled mixed-use development and population density development are over. We need a leader that will embrace new ideas, pivot to more responsible development, embrace fiscal responsibility, and start focusing on preserving our neighborhoods. My opponents have a collective 28 years in the Carmel City Council. I am here tonight to earn your vote and support for the next generation of leadership in our great city of Carmel. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Councilor Finkham.
Good evening, Anne-Marie, and thank you so much to the Current and the Center for the Performing Arts for hosting us this evening and for allowing me and my distinguished colleagues to discuss the future of Carmel. Thank you to all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules, and to my family and friends for their support. I've attended performances here and have often wondered what it would be like to be on the stage with a full house, and I have to tell you, the view is spectacular. By way of introduction, I'm a business executive, a community leader, a wife, and a mom who wants to put my talents to work for you as your next mayor. I'm running to build on Carmel's successes, prioritizing crime prevention and public safety, ensuring our fiscal house is in order, improving infrastructures in our amazing neighborhoods, keeping our parks and amenities world-class, and also bringing transparency, community collaboration, and involvement to the forefront. I'm qualified to lead this fine city because I've spent the last 30 years leading businesses, helping them grow, and advocating for people. I'm founder and CEO of a marketing agency called Firestarter, and I'm proud to say that I can draw a direct line between what myself and my 12 team members do to saving and healing lives each and every day with our healthcare marketing efforts, including getting transplants to people who wait for the gift of life. You see, it's about providing people with a brighter future, which is exactly why I'll run for your next mayor. I first came to Carmel in 2005 as a marketing director opening a brand new hospital here. In 2007, after completely embracing the community, my husband and I brought our son to this community to move so we could get access to the state's best school system. And in 2011, when the opportunity arose to run for city council, I jumped at it because I wanted to be at the helm of creating an environment where our son could thrive. I'm proud to say that since I've been on council, serving alongside Mayor Brainerd, enacting his incredible vision, the city of Carmel has been recognized over 70 times for our quality of place, including Best Place to Raise a Family just this year. As a result of my business and community leadership experience, I've been recognized as one of India's best and brightest, named an IBJ Woman of Influence, and most recently, Enterprising Women named me to the 2023 class of champions, the only female entrepreneur in the state of Indiana to make that list. Those accolades are appreciated, but the greatest thing I've been called are Mrs. Finkham and Mom. Ultimately, you don't really care how we got here tonight. What you want to know is how we can lead into the future. I welcome the opportunity to share more about my vision for Carmel, and I look forward to all of your questions tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Ryder.
Kevin Woody Ryder, I would consider it an honor to be your next mayor of Carmel, Indiana. I moved to Carmel, Indiana in 1983. I was 21 years old. I opened my first business. I had nothing. Carmel has given me my life. I spent the next 6 or 7 years working on that business and building it. When I got out of that business, I eventually thought, well, I'm gonna work on getting into a more fine dining restaurant. And I bought a liquor license in Carmel, opened in 1998, and I've grown with this community. We've been there 25 years. Opened our second restaurant, Divvy, 12 years ago. And that was a pleasure to do with my wife, because I had Woody's before I had my wife. The most exciting time, I've spent 16 years on your city council, 12 years on your plan commission, 1 year on the CRC. I like to be involved in the community. I'm on the advisory board at the Humane Society. I'm a board member of Cherish Center, which is a child advocacy center. Any kids who are molested and abused in Hamilton County, we forensically interview them. That's a passion of mine. I also, 3 years ago, my wife and I formed a charity called Feeding Neighbors. When the state closed us down, we had a lot of food. And the motivation was, we gotta put this to use. And over the last 3 years, it has continued to grow. Through my church, I've spent 23 years at Northview Church. We found a lot of organizations. We help out minority kids down in Brookside, School 54. We do a lot for them with before and after school programs. Prime Life, for the last 3 years, we've been delivering meals to Prime Life. I like to get ingrained in the community. The last 16 years of my life have been the best years of my life. This community gave me what I have. I like giving it back. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's move into the questions. First up, Carmel hasn't had a new mayor since 1996, nearing 30 years. If you are elected, what differences will Carmel residents notice in how you lead the city compared to your predecessor? Also, please explain how you would lead differently than the other two candidates on stage this evening. Councilor Finkham, you're up first.
Thank you very much. I think the biggest thing is my style of leadership. My executive business experience is unique. I've worked along CEOs who have led thousands of people, innovated with patents and technology, and led peers in their industries. I've been trusted to bring a large hospital and large manufacturing facilities online and to help launch new technology that saves lives. I built high-performing teams managing hundreds of people and leading them through change. And I believe this leadership background differentiates me from my esteemed colleagues here on the stage. My husband and I also both own businesses here locally, and I understand the needs of small businesses. And one of the main things I want to do to help small businesses is create a business liaison position to help small and large businesses navigate the city services. If we can make them more successful faster, because small businesses are the backbone of our community, we ourselves win as well as far as the city is concerned. I also think bigger and bolder. I believe in values-based leadership and using data to make informed decisions. Right now, we don't really rely on data. We've had an incredible mayor with incredible vision, but data-informed leadership makes us rise faster and be more transparent. We can create an open transparency portal on the website for everyone to look and see where we're spending our dollars, how our priorities are being financed, and how we're doing to achieve our goals. But I think the biggest difference in experience that I can bring is embracing the community. One of the first things I want to do is do a citywide survey with no limit on the number of people that can participate and deliver to you, the residents and business owners of Carmel, the first community-endorsed strategic plan. It's been Jim's vision for so long, but it really should be our vision moving forward, and I would love to participate in their journey with you.
Councilor Ryder.
I've spent the last 40 years in small business in Carmel. That has prepared me, 16 years serving with our mayor. I can't think of a better guide to how we would run this city. But I would start with communication. I've always said that one of our weak points is people don't have the information. And when people don't have the information, the internet can make up whatever it wants to. It's on Plan Commission especially. When a project would come in, I remember the very first committee I was in, I told the committee chair, I said, there's a lot of people here that aren't happy. And I said, can we table this? And he said, yes. And I looked at the developer and I said, you're gonna meet with the neighbors. I've led that over the last 16 years. People need the information. I have a program that I wanna start called Carmel Finances 101. I wanna show you our finances from top to bottom. You know, we spend 17% of our revenue on debt. A lot of households would be pleased with that. In all my time, I've probably employed thousands of people, kids and adults in our community. I think that has prepared me to run this city. I've enjoyed, you know, the mayor and I agree and disagree, but you have to formulate the idea. When he said, he would say to me, you know, we want to build new roundabouts. Well, my thought was, okay, Jim, we're gonna be the best in the country in roundabouts. What's our next best thing? That's what I want to be known for. What is the next best? We are best at building roundabouts, and it changed our community.
Thank you. Mr. Glenn?
I think the biggest difference that you would see when I meet with me as mayor is the type of development we're doing. I think that in the future, the development that we're bringing in here needs to have more gathering spaces, more grass, and that type of thing to make for a more vibrant community. When you look at the apartments that are on Old Meridian and, Main Street and Old Meridian right now, some of the residents there say the only gathering spaces they have there is a pool. There's nothing else, no place for them to gather. If we take a stand on development that comes in this community to have that type of thing, it'll lead to a more vibrant community across the city. You'll see less taxpayer dollars go into this type of development, less high density housing, because I think we have enough of that. There's enough of that in the city currently, and that'll be the biggest difference in how I would lead as mayor and with my vision. My difference between me and my colleagues, you've seen me on the county council form coalitions to get things done. I didn't wait for things to come to me. I formed coalitions to lead and put things to the commissioners, and we got things approved. I think that would set me apart from the competition. So that's the biggest differences you'd see between me and the competition, and how we would change things with me as mayor.
Any rebuttals? Seeing none, we'll move on. As undeveloped land in Carmel has dwindled in recent years, the city has turned more frequently to redevelopment, with many projects much larger in size and density than what they've replaced. When considering a redevelopment project, how will you determine if it's a good fit? And how important is it to preserve the existing character of an area, including any natural areas or wildlife there? And Councilor Ryder, you're up first.
Redevelopment. The mayor, when he got elected in 1996, had a broad blank canvas to paint on. I think we're getting to the point now where we've got a dartboard. The next mayor of Carmel is going to be throwing darts. It has to be very planned and targeted. It has to be based on our needs. We've created a market in Carmel. We don't need to court the business anymore. They're coming to us. So I think we'll have our choice. As far as what type of development and where, Midtown we've proven, and our city center, to go up instead of out. When you go out, you require more infrastructure, and we're already looking at another fire station out in the west side. So the more you go up in the middle, you don't increase any need for infrastructure or staffing of your public safety. Preserving character, I love Old Town Carmel. When I first opened Woody's, you could buy houses a lot cheaper than you can now. 2 weeks after I opened, the mayor tore all our streets up. And I got a little mad. That's how he and I met. And we talked for about an hour. And every year since then, it's been better. I mean, he said, this is what I'm going to do to Old Town Carmel. We need to use that type of thought. We need affordable housing, attainable housing. I want our seniors, as they sell their homes, I want them to be able to stay here. That's going to be a push in development. That'll be priority, actually, because right now we lose a lot of people outside of our community. Thank you.
Mr. Glenn?
You'll repeat that question, please?
Sure. As undeveloped land in Carmel has dwindled in recent years, the city has turned more frequently to redevelopment, with many projects much larger in size and density than what they replace. When considering a redevelopment project, how will you determine if it's a good fit? And how important is it to preserve the existing character of an area, including natural areas or wildlife?
I think it's very important. I think we've had, in some cases, the development has been good. Going forward, we need to have more community development or more community input and neighborhood input. I've talked to people on some of these neighborhoods on 146th Street, and they had a neighborhood that was the same way for 10 years, and then there's a piece of land right behind them, and then all of a sudden there's some type of apartment or some type of mixed use that's going in right behind them, and that just disturbs what the type of thing that they've had going on in that neighborhood for a long time. So community input needs to be sought in the future. I think that we can do that. As far as development when it comes to neighborhoods, we need to preserve the neighborhoods we have. If we have a house that's $150,000 or $200, whatever it is, we don't need to knock that down and put up a $700,000 house next to it that's very intrusive in the area, and it runs out a certain class of voters in our city, or a certain class of citizens in our city. We could pass an ordinance to make sure that we preserve certain types of neighborhoods going forward, and we should preserve green space going forward and bring development in that includes that type of thing. That's how we could do things differently there. So,
Councilor Finkham?
Thank you. Before we got down to the road to even determining projects, the first thing I would do is really meet with the staff of the Redevelopment Commission and set a new focus, and that is in community engagement. I mentioned earlier about doing a community survey, and unfortunately there's been a lack of great communication sometimes between the Carmel Redevelopment Commission and the Carmel City Council. I want to make sure we break down those walls and make sure there's a lot of transparency. I also want to make sure there's transparency with all the community development corporations that the CRC uses to get work done, and together set priorities with the City Council and the Redevelopment Commission and the Mayor all together to set priorities what our community needs. And again, we're going to have our community's feedback in a document that we have already solicited. And I want to make sure that whatever we do, we don't lower our building standards or reduce our architectural standards, because we've created an incredible community here. And although we do need some more housing in the attainable stock, what I don't want to do is reduce the quality of building opportunities that we have to bring in lower cost product. And as far as how determining a good fit, again, I think that bringing more people to the planning table is important. The more we can saturate ourselves with the voice of our customers, which is our business owners, and particularly our residents who invested their life savings in their homes, that's the #1 thing we can do.
Go ahead.
One thing I'd like to add, yesterday I met with a group of West Side neighbors, and they get involved in all the projects we do. And one of the things they said to me is, by the time it gets filed and gets to us, it's too far down the road. I made a commitment to them that we would have those neighborhood meetings before projects get filed with our staff. Thank you.
Anne-Marie.
Yes.
One other thing I want to make sure that I address, and that is, as we've been walking door to door and having phone calls with residents these past few months, the one thing that's become increasingly clear is our residents are really worried about the percentage of apartments we have in this community and how we're going to drive that forward. And so again, I think we would also need to invest in a housing study to really understand how much housing stock we have, what the demand is, but really turn and pivot our investment to single-family housing, condos in the central core. We've got so many of my residents on the northeast side that have to leave the community over the last few years, where they've helped us grow this amazing community, and they have to go to Bridgewater in Westfield or over in Fishers to find homes when they want to downsize. That's an investment, and I would like to find innovative ways to use our public-private partnerships to make sure we can keep them in the home they've grown up in and helped us build.
To address that really quick, the apartments is something that I talked about for the past 4 years. If you look at Pike Township and Castleton, we do need a certain amount of apartments, but when you look at what happened in those communities when those apartments were maintained, it caused certain problems in those areas, and we can have that same thing happen here if we don't make sure that the apartments are maintained and we don't quit building too many of them as a ratio of 1,000 per 1,000 residents. But I've been talking about that for 4 years, and the residents here are finally starting to take notice of that, just like she said when we go door to door. So thank you.
Thank you. Has your campaign accepted donations from developers or other entities or individuals that do business with the City of Carmel? And how should elected officials ensure that campaign donors don't buy influence? Mr. Glenn, you're up first.
I have not taken any money from any vendors or people that do business in the City of Carmel at all. I wouldn't let anybody influence me if I did, but I have not taken any of those types of donations.
Councilor Finkham?
Thank you. We have accepted a few $1,000s of campaign donations. I'd like to say it's been more, but unfortunately there's been, and I say like me more because I've had partners with a lot of these vendors, if you want to call them that, for a long time. But there have been several reports from professionals over time that they can't give to us because they've been told if they give to our campaign, they will not get a city contract. And so, whereas that's been frustrating for me, we've also set a record number of individual donations for a mayor's campaign, so I'm very proud of that fact.
Councilor Ryder?
I've spent 16 years on council and 12 years on planning commission. I've developed a lot of relationships. If you ask anybody who's given me a check during that time, one of the first things I say to them, if you ever ask me for a favor, you get your check back. And they'll also tell you, any breakfast or lunch I've had over the last 2 years in raising money, I bought every one of them. I don't let them buy mine. So no, giving me money buys no influence with me. And anybody who says otherwise, I'm going to keep my campaign on a positive note. Thank you.
Any rebuttals?
Yes. I don't believe there's negativity here, but you asked a direct question about campaign financing and how we're getting our dollars. And I'm just telling you that we've had many, many professionals call us and say they've had calls directly from Councilor Ryder saying they will not get business with the City of Carmel if they give to our campaign, period. We've also had people who've attended events of ours who've gotten calls the next day and gotten threats because they've attended our campaign events and been seen on Facebook. And we've also had people say because they've liked something on Facebook, they've gotten a call as well. So I'm sorry if that's negative. We've been living with negativity for 4 months.
Okay, moving on. Carmel's population is becoming more racially and ethnically diverse, but some residents have raised concerns that the city government and its employee base does not reflect the community. Do you feel it's important the City of Carmel's workforce demographically reflects the community it serves? Why or why not? Councilor Finkham, you're up first.
I do think it's important that our city staff reflect the community it serves, but our city is so diverse that's going to be very challenging to do. The schools state that we have 120 languages spoken in the homes of kids who attend Carmel High School from 78 different countries. So that's an incredible thing and something to be very, very proud of. And I believe we can supplement the fact that we don't necessarily have representation from every one of those countries, but the fact of making sure we hire the right employees with the right mindset who want to care for people no matter where they came from or what they look like. Our terrific city employees have helped build an incredible award-winning city that have attracted all these residents, and I would like to see that continue.
Councilor Ryder.
I'm very proud of the diversity in our community. I have reached out recently to department heads, especially our fire department, and I asked them that question. And they said that they constantly reach out into the minority papers and things that are down in Indianapolis, and they don't get the applications. So we will continue that effort. We will continue being very aggressive on it, but we can't make it happen. It has to happen organically.
Mr. Glenn.
I'm very proud of the community we live in. It's a very diverse community. Most of the people that I've talked to are very happy here. We got people from a lot of different countries, speak a lot of different languages, and a lot of religions. And we're represented by a lot of different people here. Everyone that I've talked to has had good experiences with our city employees, our police officers, and they've had no problems in that regard. As far as our city employees go, we have to hire the person based on merit, because if we start looking at people based on a group characteristics instead of individual characteristics, then I think that takes us down a bad path.
Seeing no rebuttals, we'll move on. The Carmel Redevelopment Commission at times has faced criticism for lack of transparency, such as when the Hotel Carmichael project went beyond the initial cost estimates, which came as a surprise to even some members of the City Council at that time. The Council has added more oversight of the CRC in recent years, but some residents still feel much of its work is done behind closed doors and citizen voices are not considered. What are your thoughts about how the CRC operates and oversight of it? And Councilor Ryder, you're up first.
The CRC, I'm not disagreeing that a lot gets done. That's why I had that meeting yesterday. So my answer is going to be similar. No project will get filed with the CRC, Plan Commission, or Council that will not have neighborhood meetings first. We will give people a chance to get involved early.
Mr. Glenn?
The CRC, in a lot of cases, has completely bypassed the city council. So you elect your council member, they go up to council, you expect them to have oversight of certain projects and certain expenditures of spending your tax dollars, in the CRC at times, and a lot of times, has completely bypassed council. Since I've been in Carmel, I think there's been at least 2 bailouts of the CRC because they've completely overextended themselves. Going forward, we need to rein that in. Every single spending proposal needs to go in front of the city council, and it needs to be approved by the city council. The CRC has also, we had a bailout and an audit behind closed doors of the CRC. So going forward, if I'm mayor, we will bring in an outside company to audit the CRC, and we will stop with the CRC bypassing the city council and doing these projects with zero oversight.
Councilor Finkham.
Yes, I addressed this actually earlier in a question, but I would absolutely make sure that we have more collaboration between the Carmel City Council, the CRC, and the related community development corporations. Of particular frustration for me on City Council is that we can't see the operating budget and the financial effectiveness or lack thereof of the Hotel Carmichael. To all eyes, it looks like it's wildly successful, but we can't get financials out of that. And I feel like that's a big miss for you, the residents of the city of Carmel, to not have your legislative body or fiscal body being able to see how effective that program is. And again, it's at the tone of the mayor. If the mayor says we want to make sure we open the doors wide, get our residents as much information online, and allow as much business to be done in regular meetings and not executive session as possible, understanding some business has to be negotiated in private for competition reasons. It's at the behest of the mayor that this should happen, and I am absolutely 100% behind inviting the community in.
Councilor Ryder?
Yeah, to add to that, a little similar to what Sue just said, as the mayor totally, by state law, totally controls the CRC. I mean, they have 3 appointments, the council has 2. The council would have no ability to change that. It's done by the state legislature. But as mayor, you can set that tone, and I would. There would be nothing going on at CRC or the Carmel City Council that each entity would not know.
All right, moving on. Taxpayer dollars fund essential services such as public safety and infrastructure, but they're also used to pay for more discretionary projects. What is something that taxpayer dollars have paid for in Carmel that you believe that they should not have funded? And Mr. Glenn, you're up first.
I'm not sure how the audience feels, but I'm not a big fan of all these sculptures on those roundabouts. That's just my personal preference. You have one person picking those things. I'm not sure we should be funding that. Maybe we could put nature on there, some flowers or something instead of all these statues. That's some type of discretionary that we shouldn't have done. It goes back to the CRC too, the way that there's no oversight of the CRC or a private hotel. We should never have financed a private hotel that 99% of the people in this room will never stay in, but our city government still finance that hotel. So those are just a few things that come to mind.
Councilor Finkham?
I know as I've spoken to people walking door to door, some have expressed concern about our spending priorities. And as mayor, I can assure you my first spending priority would be essential services. Police and fire, absolutely top of the pile. I would never justify art over safety, period. We have fantastic employees. I would make sure they have the resources they need to serve you each and every day to the best of their ability, whether it be training, safety equipment, other personnel, access to IT technology that we haven't invested in, and smart technologies. Those are things that I would put my priorities toward. I'm sure that there's, several things that I can look back on over time and say there's some things that I wouldn't have personally supported. A few of those sculptures would be one of them. However, we have an incredible environment, and the number one thing that we hear day in and day out is people love our quality of life. So I don't want to throw all the sculptures under the proverbial bus, because people love their quality of life here. People come here and visit here, go back home and decide, I'm gonna come back and visit. We've heard so many people say, I moved here after visiting to your community once. Art is memorable. Art creates conversation. Art makes sure that educated minds can have creative conversations with other people, and that's what people love about our community. That's part of what makes Carmel special. But I wanna make sure we have a balance. We have to put essential services first.
Councilor Ryder?
Public safety comes first. Over the last 16 years, police chiefs and fire chiefs would tell you if they needed something, I was one of the first phone calls they made. A couple years back, firefighters were practicing on a house behind Woody's, filling it with smoke and practicing inside. And they took me over and said, hey, walk in. I said, don't I need a mask? They said, no, it's vapor smoke. So I walked in, and they had a little smoke detector that could see through the smoke. Well, usually they have a gun that's about this big that somebody carries. And I asked them, how many people do we have on duty at any one time, and how much are these? Within the next hour, I called the mayor and I said, Mayor, I need $68,000. And he said, for what? So every one of our firefighters will have one of these on their turnout gear. That's first in priority. That anything that makes our police and fire go home to their families on a nightly basis is something that will be the first priority. Are there some things that the mayor bought that I might not have? Sure, but he's mayor, and everybody, the majority of our population elected him. That was his purview at the time. I'm probably a little less expensive art person if we were to do some art. I love murals on the side of buildings. They don't cost very much. So public safety will always be first. In 40 years of running my own businesses, I'll look at every dollar. When you own your own business and you're a small business, you look at every dollar. as mayor of Carmel, I'll do the same thing with the taxpayers' dollars.
Councilor Finkham?
I want to underscore, too, the era, if you want to call it that we've come out of with the amount of discretionary spending we've had is gone. There's a lot of things changing in the external environment that will change our ability to spend and invest in our community like we have in the past. Our essential needs moving forward are greater. We have an upcoming water master plan to fund. We have a 7th fire station to build. We have 15 fire officers to hire with that, and we're short on streets, code enforcement, and police. That personnel is a big portion of our budget. We also have many threats to our revenue. Just in this year's legislative session alone, we have 4 bills going through that have drastically cut our income tax revenue, which is a taxpayer that makes me happy not to have to pay income tax. But there's other things that would have cut TIF and personal private property tax, and we are not going to have the same dollars to invest, and we have to be smart and prioritize.
Mr. Glenn?
Public safety is obviously a priority. I did want to address what was said about the art and that brings people here. There was no community input on a lot of that art. And I know that Councilor Finkham, she's been door to door. I've been door to door. Most of the people have no input on those statues that are going on those roundabouts. I like some of the art that's going on those roundabouts, but art is subjective. So that doesn't mean that the majority of the people are going to like that. And also, a lot of the time, the council that they put together, they had no input on either. There was one man picking this stuff. So when it comes to art, it shouldn't be put in a community like that when there's no community input. And we should never, ever be funding private entities with your tax dollars. That's just something we should never be doing. A private person getting that kind of money to own a hotel that's supplied by the city is immoral, and it should never have happened. And I will say I agree with public safety should be the first priority. I think we all agree on that.
Councilor Ryder?
Public art is in the eye of the beholder. The mayor had a vision. I'm not going to stand up here and question that. I mean, the awards we've won, the pride, when I'm knocking on doors, the pride that I hear of people living in our community. Just because one of us or any of the 3 of us wouldn't have done exactly what he did, the reason our community is what it is, you know, some people don't like that we have the flower baskets, but when you drive down the road, it's another reason people love Carmel, the quality of life. Are they things to look at if finances change because of our state legislature? Sure they are. But quality of life is important to our residents. And that's what I'm hearing when I knock on doors.
Thank you. Next question. All 3 of you have campaigned on making city government more transparent and giving Carmel residents more of a voice. How specifically do you plan to do that? Councilor Finkham, you're up first.
Thank you. I mentioned earlier that one of the first things I would do is do a citywide survey. Again, no limit on who can participate use that to create the first city-endorsed strategic plan. That's step 1. I'd also invite more citizens to the planning table. I would have a transportation advisory committee. I know as a mom, having shuttled my son across from Carmel back and forth, and my husband doing the same thing, bringing residents to that transportation advisory committee would be very valuable. I'd also want residents involved in investment planning. We scrape money out of our checking account every day, invest it, and I want to make sure that there's a lot of eyes because we're using other people's money to invest. I would also I would create an art commission. It's something I wanted a few years ago. I couldn't get it through, so we compromised on an art committee. As you've heard and read in the news, that doesn't have any teeth. And with that, I want to make sure we have a public art master plan, again, driven by the community. I believe it's important to have an open door policy as well with all of our city employees, because if our city employees are well equipped to do their job, have a direct line of contact not only with their supervisor but with the mayor, they're going to feel more empowered, more valued, and they'll also be able to be more engaged with our community each and every day.
Councilor Ryder?
Repeat the question, please.
Sure. All 3 of you have campaigned on making city government more transparent and giving Carmel residents more of a voice. How specifically do you plan to do that?
I've answered that pretty much. Early involvement is the key. Communication is the key. People, I use this statement a lot, and some people like it, some people don't. People fear what they don't know. Give them the information. They don't have to agree with you because of it, but at least they have the information. That would be the first thing that I would do. You know, I have a little bit of an advantage in 25 years of having Woody's and 12 years of having Divvy. I have a polling place every night. The customers are mostly are residents of Carmel. They tell you what they want and what they don't want. So I get feedback on a regular basis.
Mr. Glenn?
Transparency, one of the things I did when I was on the Hamilton County Council was formed a coalition to bring in an outside firm to do a performance audit to make sure we were spending your tax dollars efficiently. That's transparency because we can turn that information over to the public and you can be sure that we're doing it to the best of our ability and spending your money properly. Transparency would be about getting community input before you put a high rise in their backyard or getting community input before you put a roundabout sculpture in their area. I agree with Councilor Finkham. We need to have more community input in those types of areas. Transparency would mean that more people have input. That's really the best we can do. But bringing in an outside firm to do an audit of what we've done over the past 28 years here, I think would be a real good start. So,
Councilor Ryder?
I met with our controller last week and we were discussing some of these issues. And I just want to point out that Carmel does get a comprehensive audit of all of our finances on a yearly basis from the state of Indiana. So it is an outside entity.
Councilor Finkham?
I would also like to note that we have an opportunity to also create a neighborhood liaison position to get more community resident feedback. Like I said earlier, I want to create a business liaison, and I know I've heard numerous complaints and stories over the years of how challenging it is to get streetlights in an HOA when residents want to light the school bus stop, or how hard it is to maybe get and understand what the rules are around a fence permit, and some of the just very what seems like, to people who do it every day, simple things, but for residents to try to navigate the government system, I want to make sure we have a neighborhood liaison which is very clearly understands HOA law, our city code, and is a direct line of support for people in our community.
Mr. Glenn?
one of the things that Councilor Ryder said was that they do bring in an outside firm. I seem to remember publicly when came time for a CRC audit, that was done behind closed doors. The public was not made aware of any findings, and there was no professional CPA firm brought in to audit that in the least. So to say that there's constantly or always outside professionals doing these audits is not true because it's been public, we've seen it. So that is something that needs to change. The CRC audit should not have been done behind closed doors from people that didn't even have a CPA license. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. The current administration has begun collecting data to begin the process of launching a public transportation system in Carmel. Do you believe Carmel should invest in public transportation? If so, what type of system would fit best here? And if not, why not? Councilor Ryder.
You know, just last year we passed a bond to connect all of our paths, the holes in our paths. Councilor Finkham and I both were very supportive of that. And what that does is it helps create connectivity for multi-use, bike, walk. Public transportation, the most that I would support right now would be what I call a circulator. I wouldn't mind having 2 or 3 trolley-type buses, however you wanted to design them, that you could park once and then you could pay a set fee per day and you could ride all over Carmel. It would stop people from moving their cars around all day long. Right now, I see that as the only financially reasonable, if you're looking at what Indianapolis is doing right now. I don't want any of our lanes to go away for dedicated buses. So the most I would support right now, other than filling in our paths, would be a circulator.
Mr. Glenn?
Right now, you could get on the phone if you need to go anywhere in Hamilton County and call, I think it's Janice, and they'll take you anywhere for $10. And most of that is funded by Hamilton County. It's just a small transportation. Years ago, we had a bus line going from Meyer all the way down to Eli Lilly. At first, it was supposed to be funded by fares that people that got on the bus. Slowly but surely, government had to step in and fund it. Finally, they had to fund the entire thing, and that line disappeared. We don't have the demand for that type of public transportation in Carmel or in Hamilton County outside of the stuff that we do for the community one. So I just don't see how we would do that. Really, and we have people coming here that are trying to set up the same type of red lines around Carmel that you see in college. I just don't think that would be productive for our community when we've proven time and time again that the demand just isn't there to meet that supply. Councilor
Finkham.
Thank you. I would not be in support of investing large capital dollars in a transportation system at this time either. I do believe an inter-county like around Hamilton County collector circulator bus would be great, or a permanent trolley within Carmel. But again, that would have to be privately funded through sponsorship or grant dollars. Our residents have also made it very clear to me they do not want public transit because they're concerned about crime. And crime prevention is my #1 initiative. And because if we blink when it comes to crime in our community, it doesn't matter the quality of the places that we build downtown or the statues we put up. If people are afraid to go out because there's crime in our community, it'll ruin our quality of life and what we enjoy each and every day. So that would be the biggest concern I would have. It would be disrupting the residents' expectations as far as their community. And as far as crime is concerned too, I was also very, very proud to receive yesterday the endorsement by the Carmel Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 185, for this particular mayor's race.
Congratulations on the FOP endorsement. Obviously, I got the FOP endorsement when I was on the Hamilton County Council when I went for re-election. I told them that obviously I would be happy to work with them, and I want to expand patrols, particularly because in Hamilton County, 60 to 70% of our crime comes from other counties, and we can increase patrols to prevent that. But I would think that either of my opponents here would have gotten that endorsement, considering they've been working with the Fraternal Order of Police for 12 and 16 years, so congrats on that.
Next question. The election process, a foundation of our democracy, has come under scrutiny in recent years as some voters and politicians at various levels of government have claimed fraud is on the rise, leading them to question election results. As voters head to the polls to vote in this race, should they feel confident in the election process? Why or why not? And Mr. Glenn, you're up first.
That's all done mostly through county government, and then it's mandated by the state, and then our elections officers take orders from the Secretary of State, who has his marching orders from the state legislature. In Hamilton County, there are no voting machines that are hooked up to a modem when you go and vote. So when it comes to the machines, you can be fairly confident that your vote will be counted properly. I have seen absentee ballots a few years ago. Somebody came when I was still in county government, came and dropped a duffel bag full of filled out absentee ballots there. Obviously, nobody took them, but this person was not prosecuted, and that's ballot harvesting. So I think that we could be secure in our votes, but I do think that we need to be cautious and look out for those types of things that are going on. So,
Councilor Finkham?
I'm not an elections official, but I do not have any evidence of a reason why someone should be concerned about their vote not counting here in Hamilton County during our election in May or November for that matter. I know there are isolated issues of fraud across the country reported, but I know Indiana's been a leader in voter ID, and our election officials here in Hamilton County work exceptionally hard to make sure that your vote counts on election day.
Councilor Ryder?
I have great confidence in our election board in Hamilton County. I do not see any issues.
Moving on. Do you believe that Carmel has too much debt, especially in light of recent inflation and rising interest rates? Why or why not? Councilor Finkham, you're up first.
Thank you. Our debt is scheduled out. We don't have rising interest rates that'll affect that. It's scheduled and wrapped around debt that comes on and off, and it's just like your mortgage, you know how many payments over how many years. As was said earlier, it's a very small percentage of our budget. So at this point, I have no concerns. What I do have concerns about is if we get a mayor in who will not prioritize flexibility and resilience with our city budget. I mentioned earlier all the threats to our revenue that could happen. And I want to make sure that if I'm mayor, I'm going to make sure that we have larger budgets in place, flexible budgets in place, so we know exactly where we go should conditions change that are outside of our control, so we cover our debt and don't have to raise our taxes. I've been part of putting in 2 sinking funds to protect you already. I authored legislation, city legislation, that makes sure our rainy day fund, which is the actual name of the fund that the state of Indiana has cities use for their savings account, that fund rises with the size of our general fund. So if we raise our general fund, the legislation says that should be at least 10% of that. Also, I was part of the council that authored a fund to be opened to protect us should TIF revenues dip for any reason. So I feel very comfortable in those funds, but I would also, as mayor, want to make sure we identify other ways to be flexible in our budget. So again, should some major disaster happen or something that we would need extra cash for a short period of time, that we could be self-reliant and more than anything, create peace of mind with each and every one of you.
Councilor Ryder?
In the last few elections, debt has been turned into a political football. It's been made a narrative from a political standpoint. I don't see it as political. I see the debt that we have, as I said earlier, only 17% of our revenue is used for our debt. 13% of our property taxes, of our debt is paid by property taxes. We have 16% for our sewer and water. Well, we did that to expand our sewer and water. That's paid with user fees, which are typically 35 to 50% less than anybody around us. They're very successful. It's been used well. I look at our debt as an investment in our taxpayers. We used a good portion of that debt to build our infrastructure. The reason we have the corporate headquarters we have, the reason we have the demand of people wanting to develop in Carmel is because of the infrastructure that we've built. So no, I see our debt as an investment in our taxpayers.
Mr. Glenn.
Mr. Councilor Ryder said that there was politics involved, so let's take the politics totally out of this. Standard & Poor's is the most respected rating agency probably in the world, and this is what they said when they downgraded debt. The city's annual debt payments were projected to climb $17 million in the next 5 years, reaching $57 million. S&P wrote in a letter to the city that it was concerned that Carmel's crowded budget, high fixed cost, and heavy dependence on sometimes more volatile tax increment financing would leave it vulnerable to the effects of a recession, which is about to hit us soon. Now, I'm not here trying to paint doom and gloom, but we shouldn't be telling our citizens that everything's hunky-dory with the debt, because it's not. This is Standard & Poor's here. It's not a politician. It's not somebody being political. It's a rating agency that gives this information to people that want to invest in our debt. As this debt gets downgraded, it costs us more to borrow. It's really that simple. On the county level, we had a AAA bond rating, and we made sure to keep that because it was cheaper for us to borrow, which is better for the taxpayer. Most of the infrastructure that you're talking about in this development has been done because we have a mayor who wants to control the type of development that comes in, and he gives away those infrastructure costs in the form of tax increment financing. There's been projects that don't perform, and that tax increment financing doesn't always perform. But I would listen to Standard & Poor's. I wouldn't listen to any one of us three running for office or any politician. So, thank you.
Councilor Finkham.
I want to underscore the fact that part of the reason that the county has a AAA bond rating is also because of the amount of risk that Carmel's taken and has created incredible wealth for this community. Carmel is a donor community. Most of our debt goes to the county, and they have used it to invest in great projects. But it's not been at their risk, and it's not been at any kind of sweat equity on the part of the councilors. We made it very easy for the county council to rake in dollars and spend them because Carmel was driving economic development in this county. We are the economic engine in this county, and frankly, in the state of Indiana.
Councilor Ryder.
With risk comes reward. One of the reasons last year, or 3 years ago, we're in the last year of it, Fishers went to the state legislature to try and get more money back out of county option income tax. Because we take risk, we get larger portions of the pie. To say that our mayor used the money to build infrastructure so he could control development. Carmel is what it is because of the infrastructure that we built. Without that, we would not be where we are. So I'm going to stick with it's an investment in our taxpayers.
Mr. Glenn.
The county is AAA bond rated because we manage finances properly to address what Councilor Finkham said. If you go back and look at your property tax bills, every year that I was on council, the amount of property taxes, of our portion of your property taxes shrunk, while every year's Carmel grew because the way they were managing debt kept taking more out of your property taxes. That's something worth noting. This is tax increment financing. It's a fact that most of these structures that you see, they turn around and they TIF it so the developers don't have to pay a lot of those costs. And the mayor will say, or the council will say, look, we'll give you this if you develop this exactly how we tell you to, because most of this mixed-use development is not profitable. That's why they do it that way. So to sit there and say that it's because you're investing, we're not. We're the ones putting up the jail. We're the ones putting up we are the ones who put up the parking garage. Going forward, I will be the mayor that will properly manage finances and bring in this type of development more organically and bring in an outside firm to audit, because we have to address what Standard & Poor's said, not what a bunch of politicians said. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we're going to move into our closing statements. And for that, Councilor Ryder, you're up first.
This election is going to be one of the most important elections we've ever had in Carmel. Transitioning from a mayor of 28 years that had the vision that he had, continuity is going to be very important. We're going to have 6 new faces on our city council. I've spent the last 3 years, actually about 2 weeks after the last election, I hired the team that is running my campaign. I went directly from their office to the mayor's office, and I said, Mr. Mayor, I hired my team today to run my mayor campaign in '23. And because I know what that continuity is going to be, we had a community north of us just recently elect a city council that absolutely did not like anything their mayor did, and they've done nothing for 3 years. We can't do nothing for 3 years in Carmel, Indiana. I've put a team together of 7 quality city council candidates, and my experience of 16 years on council and 12 years on Plan Commission, I think Plan Commission, you get in the dirt and you really work on the projects. I think it's given me the experience. My more than 35 years of owning my own businesses has given me the experience. I employ 105 people at my 2 restaurants right now. I've had to run and make payrolls for the last 4 decades. I think that prepares me to follow our mayor.
Mr. Glenn.
Tonight you have heard from 3 candidates auditioned to be your next chief executive. At this point, although we're good people, it's important to differentiate between the candidates. 2 of them voted to finance a private hotel with $58 million of your tax dollars, voted to increase taxes for an unneeded communications tax, voted to bail out the Carmel Redevelopment Commission, supported a special benefits tax. Then when the time came to audit behind closed doors, that was the CRC, they did it behind closed doors instead of bringing in an outside firm. These are the candidates that will continue excessive spending, taxing, and the push for population density and mixed-use development using your tax dollars. If that is the agenda you are looking for as a voter, you have 2 choices on this stage tonight. To give you some contrast, I organized a majority on the county council to vote against the communications tax because it collected 2.5 times the amount that they said they needed. Voted against any spending measures that went against your interest, and formed a coalition to bring in an outside firm to do a performance audit to make sure your tax dollars were being used efficiently. The most important thing we can be judged on when gauging future performance for a job like this is our record, and my record speaks for itself. I offer you something different than the status quo. I am offering you a people-oriented vision that involves keeping more of your hard-earned money, attracting unique small businesses without using your tax dollars, and keeping Carmel as beautiful as ever. By turning our vision to keeping our current residents and attracting the right professionals, we will bring in the types of businesses and energy to our community that we need, with government playing only the role of referee. Then, instead of pushing one type of housing, we will make sure to preserve our current neighborhoods and have housing for all stages of life, including recent college graduates, working professionals raising families, and retirees. This agenda has worked in several American and European communities, and it can work in our city as well. I ask for your vote on May 2nd for the next generation of leadership in our great city of Carmel. Thank you very much.
Councilor Finkham.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your attention and your patience this evening. As you heard tonight, I'm running to build on Carmel's successes, prioritizing crime prevention and public safety, ensuring our finances are and remain in order, improve our infrastructure in our very important neighborhoods, which are a very original economic development, keeping our parks and amenities world-class, while also bringing transparency, community involvement to the forefront. I'm proud of my record on council for the past 12 years. As I mentioned earlier, we've been recognized over 70 times, national recognitions during that time. But our best days are not behind us. With your partnership and engagement, we can continue to do amazing things. Carmel's success has no limits. We should not define our future by what we've done solely in the past, but rather set a course for an even more amazing future, far surpassing our peers, which are national in scope, and even our wildest expectations. Imagine, if you will, an international center where our world-class community can celebrate and unite, where we highlight art, food, culture, and faith from the nearly 80 different countries our residents hail from, and that can provide an economic development launchpad. Or imagine a community where we offer certificates and master's degrees, perhaps in life sciences or technology, where our large headquarters who are invested here serve as learning labs to keep and attract businesses and talent in these very particular areas, and where we can partner with other world-class institutions for grants, research, and again, economic development. And lastly, imagine a clean, safe, thriving community that has so much to do we don't have to leave home. yet is slow enough to feel, as Lionel Richie once said, easy like Sunday morning. And if only I had the guts to sing that to you on the stage. I would like to thank my colleagues for their professionalism participation tonight. I know we brought up a couple of tough topics, and I don't condone some of the tactics that were used this week via text, but I do feel it's important to have an open, honest, transparent conversation tonight, because if that's the way we're going to lead, it needs to start right now. It's been a pleasure to share the stage with you, gentlemen. To each of you in the audience or those watching at home, it's because of each of you that we have such an incredible community. The fact that you are here tonight shows your love for our city and your desire to see it move forward in a positive way. My executive experience, community leadership, and ability to unite people around a common goal make me the best suited Republican to win against a well-funded and organized Democratic nominee in the fall, because, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't just about May, it's also about November. It'd be an honor of my lifetime to be your choice as a Republican nominee to fight for the chance to be Carmel's next mayor. I humbly ask for your vote between April 4th and May 2nd, and I promise your vote will not be wasted. Thank you very much.
Thank you to our three candidates for joining us tonight to share their visions and answer questions regarding the future of Carmel. And thank you to the many Carmel residents who submitted questions or topics to consider for tonight's debate, as well as everyone who took the time to join us at the Palladium this evening or watch online. The candidates have shared their thoughts on other topics not fully covered in tonight's debate in a Q&A published in Current and Carmel and available to read online. I hope you'll visit yourcurrent.com for continued information about the race for Carmel's next mayor and the 9 seats on the Carmel City Council. Thanks again to our exclusive sponsor, the Center for the Performing Arts, for hosting this event. I hope this debate has provided helpful information to consider as you head to the polls for the May 2nd primary and November 7th general elections. Have a wonderful evening.